In this video, we're going to be cutting away a bunch of the bodywork to make room for 18-inch tires and a bunch of other new additions. We'll also be building a frame to support the entire vehicle. So let's get started. I'd like to get the wiring out intact, but it might be a little more difficult than I thought. I might have to take the bed and or the dash off to get it. Seems the manufacturer thought it would be fun to route the wire through a literal maze just to annoy me. Right, now that the wiring bundle is out, you can see just how simple it is. The battery plugs in there, power goes to the gas pedal, control unit tells the motors what to do, and then there's two motors with gearboxes on the back axle. That's it, other than radio that has its own batteries. Trying a new method of taking out screws. All right, it's time to start cutting. Front bumper cut is done. Let's move on to the back. Okay, now the rear is done and it's time to do probably the most aesthetically critical element of the entire build, and that would be cutting the wheel arches. It might be a little bit tricky because there are some fasteners very close to the edge, and we're gonna have to radius cut them by 1 inch to fit our 18-inch tires in there. Looks like I got the fender cut just right. Obviously the ride height will never be this low, but there it is for reference. All the fenders are done, now on to the interior. Plastic cutting process has been quite frustrating. I've been using ceramic cutting discs on plastic, which leaves a huge blob of melty goo along the line that you cut on. So that means I have to cut way over from the place where I actually want it to be cut at, and then grind it in the rest of the way. And that's really annoying. So I'm going to try and find a metal blade in order to do this more effectively. Alright, possible new plan. I could not find a single blade that was actually intended for wood or plastic with the correct mandrel size and the correct diameter for an angle grinder. So I have found a handle that holds hacksaw blades or sawzall blades that has no bar around the back, and therefore no hindrance to cutting through a material that's going to pinch it. So we're gonna give this a shot and keep going. Okay, well, it does work with a metal cutting sawzall blade. The hacksaw blade is too floppy, but unfortunately the plastic is just too thick and too strong. And we're gonna have to go back to the old method. Even a tiny rotary tool would be faster than this. Before I finish polishing off the front and cutting up the back, I set up a quick mock-up with the exact track width that it's going to have. And it looks just staggering. This is rough ride height too. Luckily, I do believe that I'll have the clearance I need to run these 8-inch wide tires. Provided the spindle construction allows for it, it would also be nice to have about a 30-degree steering angle like I have here. Alright, we are finally done with all the cutting of plastic for the most part during this project, and we have all the pieces back together that remain of the original Raptor. Except I'm not sure if I'm going to use the B-pillars, but now we can see how well we fit and where things are going to go. As you can see, I'm sitting where I hope to have the driving position. Now, there will be a 15-inch long engine between my back and the tailgate, and then there will be the thickness of a seat. And it must allow for all the suspension travel, you know, so the seat doesn't get hit by a cylinder head. I am sitting on a 2x6 to approximate the thickness of the seat. And I may have to trim the bottom of the dash or significantly alter or remove the dash altogether in order to make it suitable for taller people or potentially even just comfortable for myself at 5'7". I'm holding a steering wheel which is about half the size of the one that's actually going to be. But you can see that it's very close to me. So this may require some work. But let's build the frame and then we'll try again. Alright, so we got our first parts ready to weld. There's only one little issue. There is a hole right down in there that you can see open on this one, and there needs to be an accessible nut on that hole. Now, it won't be very accessible with this frame setup, so I'm thinking I might take a non-nylock nut and try to weld it on the hole and see if it'll stay there so that we don't have to access it later. Well, it's really ugly, but it seems like it kind of worked. Now that some of the rear framing is on, we got another issue to address. I've been cutting steel box section and angle iron and round tube and a whole bunch of other stuff on this metal saw blade with teeth. And I have done a whole bunch of aluminum cutting with metal saw blades with teeth before, but this one is proving to not be very effective against steel. It's getting very, very dull, especially as I'm cutting a slightly higher grade now. So I'm gonna find a different solution. Probably go buy a chop saw. This should work much better. Now only the front is left. It's really hard to bridge a large gap with material this thin. So it seems the frame lined up remarkably close to where it was supposed to be under the grill, even though I guessed where the spot was. Hopefully these jack stands are stable. All right. So do I fit? Yeah, pretty much.